And we are live. Welcome to another Hump Day special with the father of DeFi, Reggie Middleton. I am your co-host, Marlon. How you doing today, sir?
I'm all right. And yourself, sir?
I'm doing all right. Can't complain. It's a little rainy down here in Georgia, but I ain't gonna let that put tears on my face.
Rain brings life, man.
Exactly. You got to wash out all the bad stuff. That's what's going on in the markets, right?
Actually,
But
believe it or not, the market's actually doing pretty good.
in relative to what?
Relative to nothing, actually. Think about it. Okay. A lot of people still think that crypto is akin to securities or stocks and bonds. It ain't. It is not. Crypto is technology. The technology part of crypto has never been stronger. Think about who's buying in right now when everybody else is saying the markets are bad, people are losing money. Goldman Sachs is raising $2 billion to jump in at the last minute. What's the other company?
I seen Michael Saylor and them. They bought some more recently.
Okay, and they're buying tokens. Okay, Goldman Sachs is coming in to buy assets. If I'm not mistaken, Citibank is arranging to jump in. Morgan Stanley.
When you say assets, what are you referencing to? If it's not the Bitcoin itself,
because everything's on sale. 3AC defaulted, causing everybody who lent them money to go into the tube. Those businesses and the assets those businesses had flew through the toilet. So now everybody's coming in. It's like it's a 80% off sale.
Okay. Yeah, the 3AC company, they were backed by, was it a Voyager Digital, which ended up getting like a $500 million loan from Sam Bankman-Fried.
Right, as well as forgetting the other company. Another company as well was levered into them as well.
It was BlockFi.
BlockFi, right.
Let me bring up. You can keep talking. I'm just gonna bring up the article real quick.
So what these companies are doing is they're doing what you call vulture investing, and they see there's weakness in the market, and they're trying to pick up assets and businesses for cheap. Okay, we have Bitcoin, the big B, and Bitcoin, the little b, and everybody's focusing on the little b. The big B is where the real value is, because the big B, you need the big B for the little b to work. And the more people are going to the big B, the more the big B is worth, and then eventually the more the little b is going to be worth. Okay,
and for those out here who are watching and don't know, Big B is the Bitcoin network itself. Little B are the Bitcoin that we are buying, selling, swapping, and all that. Just to clarify for some folks out there.
And it's not just Bitcoin. Look at Ethereum. Ethereum is trading at about 1,100 or so, a little less, a little more. Okay, it was trading at 4,000 and change. 75% drop. You have the Nuri Rubinis in the world and Peter Schiffs of the world. All crypto is a scam, blah, 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 blah. But look what happens. JP Morgan bought in wholesale the consensus. Wholesale. Okay? They're moving their platforms over to consensus. They sold assets to consensus and then went and bought in consensus, bought parts of consensus. So JP Morgan, the largest bank in this country from an asset perspective, Morgan Stanley, one of the most strategic M&A consultants and banks in this country, Goldman Sachs, ditto, right? All these companies are going in. Sam Bankman-Fried, who I can't comment on a lot, don't know him, but he seems to be doing rather well, despite the fact he's very young, okay? He's going in wholesale. So when the most successful and the biggest and the most connected investors are buying in, at the same time that all the reporters are saying, oh, it's a bloodbath, who do you think is wrong?
I'm going to go with the old saying, follow the money.
It's always been about that, So if you have a choice of buying, think of trying to pick up crumbs in front of a speeding freight train. It's not worth it, okay? But if you could get on that train, you're good. So using this analogy back to the internet, you can invest in IP packets, the little pieces of bits and bytes of information that go back and forth through the internet channels, or you can invest into the actual internet itself. And that investment gives you ownership in the infrastructure, which is needed to produce the Coinbases and the Google, well, Coinbase is a different story. We're going to talk about them later. The Googles and the Amazons and the Facebooks. So it's a no-brainer. So when the markets are doing very well, it's the most bullish it's ever been. On top of Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, Sam Bankman-Fried, and JP Morgan, you also have the Bank of England, you have the Federal Reserve, you have the PBOC, the People's Bank of China, okay, all going head in with CBDCs. That's the technology that underpins a lot of this stuff. They're not going fully decentralized for obvious reasons, but they're still going head on.
Right. And that's what I keep mentioning to a lot of
more powerful than the Federal Reserve, not a financial institution. There is none.
Right. And in regards to the CBDCs, that's what I keep mentioning to a lot of people. It's like, whether you like cryptocurrency or not, you think it's a scam, this or that, whatever, the technology behind it is going to be adopted regardless, across every industry and country. So whether you like it or not, it's going to be a part of your life at eventually some point in time. And doubling back on the same Sam Bankman-Fried, a month ago, he made comments actually saying that FTX was prepared to deploy billions on mergers and acquisitions, and that they've been financially sound for what looks like 10 quarters straight. So they're ready to throw all this money out there and gobble up some of these platforms that have, been a big hub for some of these users. And in regards to BlockFi, I was using BlockFi for about a year or so before the state started issuing them the securities violations, I think it was, where basically before they had to pay the fines and everything. So I think, like you said, we're going to see, they're calling Sam Bankman-Fried the Buffett of crypto. I think it's kind of funny, but like you said, what type of investor did you see? You said a shark investor? What was it?
A vulture investor.
A vulture investor.
But basically, they go and pick the meat off of the rotting carcasses of other companies. But it sounds much worse than it is, because another way of putting that is a value investor. They want to buy something for less than it's worth.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
They're comparing him to JP Morgan, James Pierpont Morgan. But to be truthful, it's really not all that. He has liquidity and he's solvent. Other companies don't have liquidity, and not because, but they're insolvent. So stuff goes on sale, he goes shopping. That's what anybody would do who can add and subtract properly.
I think it's kind of funny that we had our episode last week about liquidity versus insolvency, right before he put those comments out that, majority of exchanges are insolvent. He didn't name any specific, of course, but he definitely mentioned that there would be a lot more to come down the pipeline. I was reading that article you sent me earlier, said there's over 600 exchanges worldwide, and only it's probably, I think it was like 10 to 20 of them are the majority, leaders, but everything after that is just kind of garbage.
I'll tell you what, because there's not a lot of guys like me in the space who speak publicly. There may be some in the space, but they don't speak publicly. They definitely don't show up on YouTube. Okay. So I would make it very easy. You want to find out who's insolvent? Just do math. Okay. Let's start out with a basic lesson. You have $100. Okay. Let's say you have $10,000, but you want to get into crypto. Okay. You want to do some big trades. So you do a simple margin loan, right? Just 50%. Okay. You borrow another $10,000. So you want to buy $20,000 worth of Bitcoin. Okay. So I lend you $10,000. Okay. You have $10,000 your own. You have $20,000 to a Bitcoin trade. That's called 50% margin. Okay. Or 50% loan of value. You go and buy Bitcoin at $60,000. Bitcoin now goes down to $20,000. How much money do you have left?
I got a third of what I had.
Okay. So 1/3 of 20,000 is about 6,000.
A little less than 7. A little less than 7.
Okay. So am I getting my money back?
No, you ain't getting yours back.
Okay.
I mean, you're gonna take what I have.
Okay, I take it what you have means I ain't getting it back because you don't have what I do. Okay.
Right.
So at best case scenario, right? I'm taking a 43 36% loss. Best case scenario. That's assuming I can get to your collateral. Okay. Best case, 36%. Now, if you did business with anybody else, we got to fight for that 36% left. I mean, we got to fight for that 6,400 left. If you went and did business, margin business with anybody else. Now, there's a good chance I'm in trouble, especially if my business is ending, because everybody else did the same thing and invested in the same assets that you did. So now I'm getting wiped out everywhere. Now, for you, do you have any money left?
I ain't got nothing left. I done had to pay up all my collateral. I'm out.
So you're out of it. You're what you call insolvent. The media, CoinDesk, I'm going to pick on CoinDesk because you know why. CoinDesk and Cointelegraph said you had liquidity issues. You know, that's like someone getting shot and killed, right? And saying, you know, he has, you know, major bruise. No, he doesn't have major bruise, dude.
I got more than that.
No, that's not his problem. You know, and he's not getting back up. You know, he doesn't need a Band-Aid, right? And that's basically what we have. We have a conflation of solvency and liquidity. Liquidity is the ability to buy and sell something without moving the price. Okay. Insolvency means you have nothing to sell. Okay. That means that your debts are greater than your assets. So you can sell your assets off, you still have debts left.
Right.
Okay. That's balance sheet insolvency. And I think we went through this last show. Cash flow insolvency means that you're spending more than you're receiving.
So let me ask you, Reggie, when looking at something like this, where we're looking at total value locked up across and we're using DeFi Llama just as a resource for visualization, where we had a max of about 250 billion worth of value locked up, and now we're at about 73 billion. Is this does this help, or I guess provide more evidence to your case of insolvency, or just depreciation in some of these platforms and values and tokens?
Well, what you have to do is you have to look at outflows. So that drop from 250 to 70 something can be depreciation in value or price, or outflows. Most likely a combination of both. Okay, but now this is where liquidity comes into play. Okay, when you have a liquidity issue, or a liquidity crisis, or a dearth of liquidity, everybody starts to buy at the same time. I mean, to sell at the same time, and everybody rushes for the exit at the same time. If everybody sells at the same time, that causes a liquidity issue because that action of selling depresses the price. Okay, and as the price is depressed, then more people want to sell. And when more people sell, it depresses the price. So you have that circle. That happens.
That exit door getting jammed now.
Right, it gets smaller and smaller as more bodies get crammed up into it. So that's one issue. And the other issue is, as the price goes down, or the value goes down, then, because here price and value start to converge, you know, when people start to see the light. They might flip to the other side, but they start to converge. Remember, in other discussions, I said price does not equal value, and it doesn't here, but you can see it starts to converge a little. And on the other side, at times it starts to converge. So the problem, just to finish what I was saying, I can show you how to determine which exchanges are insolvent using that scenario I gave with you, okay, with 50 LTV. So you only borrow 100%, okay? If you look at what are these exchanges are offering in terms of leverage, what numbers do you see?
Just yield, or they put it as rate, APR?
No, I'm talking about actual leverage. In other words,
the actual amount.
Yeah, no, the leverage. Like the most leverage I've seen is
I've seen 100 times on some.
How much?
100 times.
100 times.
100x.
Right. So if you borrow 100 times your money, right, what percentage loss do you need to have to get wiped out at 100 times?
1%.
There you go. So what that is called in business lexicon, finance lexicon, is basically a binary option. You know, they're trying to play it like, you know, you have a scale of potential losses. No, you don't. You win, you lose. You got two options. Right. Nothing in between. Okay.
a slim or a small margin of error with that.
Yeah. So either you made money or you lost money. Okay. Now, going down to 20 times leverage or 10 times leverage or even 5 times, which people may seem or think is realistic or plausible, at 5 times leverage, right? How much of a loss do you need to take on your Bitcoin before you're totally wiped out?
Off of 5 times, what about
Yeah,
what 15 to 20%?
20%. So a 20% loss. Bitcoin goes from 60,000 to 48,000, you're wiped clean, right? If it goes from 60,000 to 20,000, you're wiped clean. Everybody who lent to you is wiped clean. Anybody standing around you is wiped clean. And your great grandmother, aunts, uncles, nephews, shoe shine boy is wiped clean too. Everybody, right? The whole crew, the whole neighborhood's done. So using that simple math, and it's not complicated, you go look at exchanges that don't have a lot of money on their balance sheet, and you can guess if they're not public, and then look at the amount of leverage they offer. So these second and third tier exchanges, right, that are offering anything over 2 or 3 times leverage, they have issues. 5 times or more, they're done.
Let's see.
All
Can
the
we?
exchanges offer 5 times or more. They all go up to about 20. You know, anything over 2 times, they're going to have an issue.
So you think going forward we won't see any more of those? We'll just see some at most 5x on some of these platforms. What's your indication for
Well,
what's going to happen next?
It's like this, because they're insolvent doesn't mean they're necessarily out of business. They can BS until prices go up, unless somebody wants their money. And when somebody wants their money, they do what Celsius did. But they say you can't have it. And you know why you can't have it? Because
they closed the door
got
completely.
So we ain't got it. You can't have it, right?
Hey, you can still get rewards though, just you can't pull it out.
You can still get promises, okay? Now, we laugh, and I'm not making fun of Celsius, because you want to know something? U.S. banking system's the exact same thing, okay? Many banks been insolvent, and they simply changed the way you calculate insolvency. Many banks were insolvent. So they just said they changed what they call the mark-to-market rule in 2009. And the day after they changed that rule, the S&P 500 shot up. You know why? Because now everybody's automatically solvent. What they did was mark-to-market is a rule, an accounting rule from GAAP, generally accepted accounting principles, which is the not-for-profit governing agency for accountants or association for accountants. And before then, basically the value of your portfolio, you simply market to market. You have 100 Bitcoin. Bitcoin is priced at $60,000 in the market, which is also not really accurate because there is no real centralized pricing in a so-called decentralized market. So you really don't know what the price of Bitcoin is, but that's a different discussion. Yes, I challenge anybody.
That's
I challenge anybody
worms.
In public if they believe otherwise. Okay, just bring your evidence. But let's say it's priced at 60,000. You have 100 Bitcoin. That is 6 million Bitcoin, right? It's about right. Yeah, 10, 60,000, 600,000, 6 million. 6 million Bitcoin. That's the value of your portfolio. Okay, Bitcoin drops to 20,000, right? Now you only have 2 million Bitcoin. Now, if you use leverage, if you use 10 times leverage to get that Bitcoin, like every bank would have, they're totally insolvent. So what
all that collateral is gone now.
Right, it's gone. So what they've done, right, what GAAP did by changing market rules, they said, well, you don't have to mark your portfolio to the price of Bitcoin anymore. You can give us your best guess estimate using a spreadsheet. Now, in reality,
that doesn't seem accurate.
Your best guess estimate would be the price of Bitcoin, right? You don't really have to guess at it. But in enabling them to do that, they put in a spreadsheet and they said, well, instead of the price of Bitcoin, we'll go put what we think the price of Bitcoin will be in 4 years when we decide to sell it. So we think it's going to go back up to $60,000 in 4 years. It very well may. But what's wrong with that solution? Yeah, I'll say
I'm not
it
sure.
ain't 4 years in the future. It's right now. Okay.
Yeah.
You know, I might grow an extra inch and put on 40 pounds more muscle in 4 years and become even more. But even if I'm right, which it may be doubtful, but even if I am right, that's 4 years from now, and we need to value who Reggie is right now. Right
Right.
now, the price is what it is. So by basically authorizing and legalizing fraud, they bailed out the banking system. Not
So just one,
economically, but legally.
just by changing the formula on how they calculate insolvency.
It's not even a formula. Just by allowing people to lie. It's not a formula. Listen, you have a car, you have a house, you bought a house for $500,000. Okay, you take out a loan for it. The loan is $400,000. You put a hefty down payment, $100,000. That price of the houses go down to $300,000. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
You're supposed to be underwater. If you get foreclosed upon, your lender loses $200,000, $100,000, guaranteed. Okay. Now you can't go to the lender and say, "But I believe and feel my house is worth $600,000. So instead of foreclosing on me, I want to take out an additional $100,000 credit line."
Based on the
Why?
fact that I'm saying my valuation is 600,000.
Exactly. You know,
That just seems like more sandbox foundations on some of these
okay.
things.
So, and that's how we pulled out of the 2008 crisis. Now, all that nonsense is still in the books, and now you have another crisis coming, another conversation. Right? But that is how some of these exchanges are going to pull out. Either the people don't ask for the money, or they just won't get the money, and there's nobody there to force the issue. Okay, so using that, just go through the exchanges, look at how much money they've been making, how much money they should have in the balance sheet reserves, and how much leverage they offered. And anybody who offered excess leverage is having a problem.
So let me ask you, one thing that we discussed before the show were some of these institutional only platforms, and the one that digital currency, the DCG provides, is the Genesis trading. So for platforms like this that aren't open to the
got the same problem as everybody else.
Okay.
Being a member of DCG group doesn't invalidate math. I'm not saying not to say it. Go ahead and say it. It doesn't invalidate math.
I got you. So, I guess what I was getting to more so was they're more so looking at the retail investors. But again, if these things if there aren't securities, they aren't protected by the SEC and all this and that, then when it comes to
one sec, I'm going to be rude and jump in. The banks were protected. The banks were covered by the SEC and the Federal Reserve and the OCC and state banking regulators. Look at that. And that looked much worse than this crypto thing here. See, the crypto thing is actually very, very bullish. Everybody's coming into the infrastructure. There was like one guy plowing into the infrastructure in 2008, and that was Mr. Buffett. I keep calling Buffet like he's cool. Buffett, you know? At least the one guy that I thought. Actually, I was plowing into it as well, but I was buying puts. Because I was like,
you were just compelling into the opposite direction.
And I didn't pay the volatility premium. I bought those puts in 2007. I remember I bought puts on Bear Stearns. I still remember because I actually met the market maker at a party who sold them to me. Chances of that happening, right?
Really?
And you want to know how he knew it was me? Because I told him the story. He said, "That was you?" Because when you have way out of the money puts, there's not a big market for them. They're usually very, very cheap, particularly if the markets are going up. Okay. They're there just basically for the sake of having them. I pay 86 cents.
Just to be used as a hedge, right?
Yeah. I spent 86 cents a put on average for Bear Stearns puts. I still remember there was somewhere I bought them at somewhere around $82, $83, $86 strike price. Okay. And everything was 80s. It was very interesting, right? Bear Stearns was about 120, trading at roughly 120 at the time, I think. Still rated investment grade rating by all the major rating agencies, and still rated a buy by all the other analysts, the Wall Street sell side firms. Those puts went up to $80 and $90 each from 86 cents. Okay. Ooh. You know why? Because I read balance sheets. I have a team that reads them. I read the fine print. I take the annual report. I turn it over and open the back page and start reading from there. Okay. A lot of the stuff is there. People just don't read. People don't want to read anymore. listen to their
Well,
uncle's aunt's nephew, and
well,
you
what was
know,
that old saying? If you want to keep something from a black person, put it in the book, or from a
put in the
slave, what's
book.
that old saying? Hey, yeah, it's
Listen,
and that
don't,
applies to just people in general. People don't
I
like
was
to
about to
read.
say, don't denigrate the brothers and sisters, because
Oh no, I'm
a
just
lot
bringing up
more
what
of
the
the
old
brothers and
saying
sisters
was.
got hit. Bear Stearns did the same thing. Lehman Brothers, General Growth Property, like 86, 90 something calls. It's
Mm,
happening right now again. Now we're talking about the problems that the exchanges are having and the investment funds who lend to them. Okay, we're not even counting the fact that all that business they're doing is off of assets that are patented already. You're not even counting infringement risk, which is significant because they're all doing it, right? If the patent stands and is not invalidated and infringement is proven, you have to realize the owner of the IP does not have to license it. They can say, you know something, I don't want to sell you a license. I'd rather you just stay out of the business.
right. And I mean, has that situation happened before that you know of?
Of course it has. Of course it happened before. Think about a business that spent a lot of money to create something and is trying to build a business selling that something. And then other guys come in, steamroll with a little more money and just take over, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the business is like, I didn't create this to share. I created this to sell it. So no, I'm not going to license it. You cannot be compelled to license something to somebody unless that something is for the public good. A good example would be the COVID vaccine, right? The COVID
Yeah.
vaccine was discovered based upon patented technology. And the government says, we will buy this en masse from you at market price, but you have to sell it and you have to license it. We're not going to allow you to play, this is my stuff, because the welfare of the country is at stake. So that was
But weren't
compulsory licensing.
but weren't each of the vaccines still different, like between all the companies that offered them?
I think the Johnson & Johnson was done differently. I think the other two were done for mRNA technology,
Mm-hmm.
which was recently patented, but they've been working on for 20 years. But I'm not an expert on that, so I'm going just from what I recall from reading the media. But
Right.
the moral of the story is that's an example of when compulsory licensing will come into play. Certain bioengineered foods may come into play, definitely things that have to do with public health, like vaccines, medicines, et cetera, that will solve a pandemic. The government is not going to allow you to play, games. Even if you do have a legitimate case, they're like, well, the well-being of the country comes before, your profit margins. But you don't take a loss on it. They just compel you to license it. In other words, you have to sell it to others. You have to allow others to do it. Those others still have to pay you your license fee.
Right.
Okay, so it's not like they're taking from you. They just say you cannot exclude because of, this public health or public good reason.
Right.
Crypto is very different, and there's no reason for compulsory licensing because whether Coinbase or FTX or Binance stays in business is not going to cause a significant dip in the health and well-being of the U.S. and its citizens.
Right. So let me ask you, we've touched on this briefly before, how, of course, how Ethereum and a couple other DAOs and different platforms infringe on yours, and we touched on Bitcoin. So referencing back to that today, you mentioned that previously Bitcoin didn't infringe, but after a couple of their improvement upgrades, that did, in fact, well, to your research, excuse me, infringes on your IP due to some claims. I don't think we got into too in depth of what that upgrade was. Are you able to share that today?
Well, I'll share it. The issue is, in my opinion, I found there are a lot of people and entities in this industry who go out of their way to make sure that I won't do well.
Mm-hmm.
So, and because of that, I have to be careful. But everything that I've researched, everything that I've found publicly. The Bitcoin code sitting right on GitHub. You can see it.
Right. Hey, all the improvements, everything you need about
Everything is
the
up
chain
there.
itself is
Everything's
out
up
there.
there. Right. There's a lot of reading, a lot of studying, a lot of understanding. But hey, that's the price of success, effort, right? Our patents are public. So I'll give you an example of something that is infringing, partially signed Bitcoin transactions. Okay, basically the ability to pass through a multi-signature transaction, a Bitcoin transaction, and let multiple people sign it, okay, as it goes through. And then once the last person signs it, or once enough people sign it to make that particular transaction valid, then it could be sent to the Bitcoin network and validated. Okay, we did that back in 2013. Okay, now, other people may or may not have done it, but we did it, it worked. We had a running application and we filed a patent application on it, hence it was published.
Now, what's a practical use case for these partially signed transactions?
Lightning Network.
But I thought that was just peer to peer. And with the partially signed, you're saying that it basically multiple people are involved in the input and the signing on the inputs and outputs, correct?
Right. It could be two people. It could be three. You can have one or two. You have two or three or four, 3 or 5, etc. The Lightning Network is an elegant solution, but it's a solution that we came up with back in 2013. And there are other aspects of the Bitcoin network that also infringe. Not just that.
You care to elaborate on those? Again, share what you can share. I just want,
and normally I have no problem. I love to educate everybody, but like I said, there's how do I put it? There was a senator, I can't remember his name, but Obama had, and I don't want to make this political, so okay, but Obama had made a comment on Roe v. Wade being overturned, okay, and Obama's the next president, okay, and he said after 50 years of precedent, right? Now we have Roe v. Wade being overturned, and let me catch my thought. Roe v. Wade being overturned, and abortions are now legal at the federal level. So this senator, standing senator, said, "Okay, Ferguson is next," which is the law that
Brown versus Word. You said, right. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
The law that forbidden segregation. Now, in my opinion, that's not cool at all. Because that's attacking me personally. I found that mentality is actually fairly rampant in many sections of the crypto community. And those same factions attack me and go out of their way to make sure I won't succeed. So knowing that, I have to be particularly careful. Do you understand what I mean?
Oh no, I got you. You got people sitting outside the house, Reggie.
So,
you got the van where people got their cameras and microphones trying to get in.
So someone who can publicly say on Twitter to an ex-president, "We're gunning for segregation to be peeled back next so we can get rid of y'all." It's not cool. Okay. Right. Like I said, that mentality is much more popular than, especially in the crypto community. And not everybody. I have tens of thousands of followers and people who appreciate me, people who've helped me, of all races, all demographics, all political leanings and backgrounds. So I don't in any way want to say it's us versus them, but there is a group of them that, in my opinion, are not cool. Okay, and I have to be very, very careful. Okay.
Yeah.
I've already had, a couple of rounds with an very zealous and aggressive, powerful entity who I don't feel, use the same set of rules with me as everybody else. And I've learned that that's probably not going to be the first time that's going to happen. So I have to be very, very careful. So that's why I'm not going to go through everything. And we're getting a little off topic, but I want to explain the reasoning for why I may or may not be cautious. So back to the point.
Oh, no, I got you. Understand. It's probably the people that kicked you out the restaurant with crypto blood last week. I saw that. I saw it. That was probably them, man.
That wasn't cool either. But like I said, I'm very easygoing. So I'm in a pretty significant position. Okay. And what I think Bitcoin infringes on is solid, and it's a foundation of Bitcoin. If it's to be taken out, the Lightning Network won't work, and many, many other things won't work. Now, this is not a bad thing. So right now, I can see a bunch of Bitcoin maxers in the background, and that's blah. But it's called progress. Okay, there is no way in the world a small group of open source developers are going to think of every possible solution in the world to every problem. If you want Bitcoin to expand and scale, if you want Ethereum, which also infringes, according to our analysis, multiple times in multiple areas and multiple claims, just like Bitcoin, if you want Ethereum to expand and grow, you're going to have to use more brain power than just that core group of developers, period. If you stick to that core group of developers, it may expand and may grow, very well maybe, at a snail's pace. And somebody who doesn't have time to play these political games are going to take the best and biggest ideas from wherever they could get them and put them into the chain. You have to pay some IP royalties. Well, that's business. It's the cost of doing business. You launch a website, you don't run your own server, you got to pay AWS hosting fees. Period. But a lot of the most successful companies in the world gladly do it. Okay.
And look, I was about to say it's only 3 major cloud providers that most of these companies are using anyway. They got a chokehold on that industry.
I used to host all my servers because I was a strong believer in control. Nobody's going to subpoena my stuff and get it. I encrypt everything, and if I don't give it personally, nobody gets it. All they get is a encrypted blob. But the effort return ratio became too great in favor of the hosting services.
Right.
And I said,
and to your point, we're just talking about Bitcoin maximalists, and they want to keep it as a small knit community. And I think we're at the point in time where it's like, hey, this technology, like we said earlier, this technology is going to be adopted. Don't look at it as Bitcoin, Ethereum, or whatever. The technology is going to be introduced and adopted. So what's something for that to happen? We have to have found technology, and also the stuff like IP rights and all that is within the cloud infrastructure, is within any device that you have on your phone. So at some point where people are saying, or you always have your, I guess, your quote unquote haters or your favorite fans that are always bringing up, the IP isn't going to help in, in any of these cases, or I guess with the involvement of Bitcoin. It's like, well, do you want to keep it as a small knit community and you do what you do, or do we want to see this kind of expanded more than what it is now? I think that's kind of the standpoint we're at.
Well, the no patent, open source only Bitcoin core community, or basically, and I don't have it downstairs, I have it upstairs. I should go get it. The rotary phone crew. Okay, that's the phone where you take the dial and go, right? And the people who want to get the best and brightest ideas and incorporate it, that's that Samsung S22 Ultra crowd with an 8K camera and a 2K screen and, all types of fantastic technologies. The iPhone 13, and I'm not a big iPhone fan because I think the technology is vastly superior and its competitors price at the same price, but we're going to use something I don't even respect a whole lot. The iPhone 13 has 200 patents in just the iPhone itself from Apple. Those are Apple patents in the iPhone. You're talking almost 1,000 other patents from other companies. Screen technology from Samsung and LG, memory technology from Samsung, CPU technology from Samsung, from Qualcomm, Bluetooth technology from Sony Ericsson.
So you can create an IP off of a combination of other IPs, is what you're saying?
Well, you can if you improve upon them, but the point is that Samsung and Apple are number 1 and number 2 smartphone providers in the world, right? And they fought over IP significantly over the last few years, right? For anybody who says that patents slow growth and innovation, somebody better inform Samsung and Apple because they're not aware of it. Because Samsung's number 1 in worldwide sales and Apple's number 2.
Wait, Samsung got more sales than Apple?
Much more sales. You know why you think?
I have a Samsung phone. I'm actually surprised to hear that because I don't like Apple phones either.
You know why you think that way? Because Apple's marketing is significant, and they tell you Apple's the best. But don't believe what people tell you. Believe your eyes. Now Apple's been growing. Okay, right now, well, not Samsung does have more sales than Apple, but if you compare Apple iOS versus Android, which is Google, Android currently has about 72% of market share, and Apple has like 26%, with like 2% being others. Okay, that's significant, especially considering that Android had zero about 11 years ago.
Right. I
So they
think
went from zero to
like, to
taking
your
over
point,
the world.
but even like with, you know, Android versus the iOS operating system, you know, you always see a lot of these new apps always come out on Apple first before they even come on the Android platform, which is one thing that I always kind of get annoyed about. But
you have to understand why, and this serves for crypto as well, because iOS works on only one platform, Apple.
right.
So you only have to program for one device or one group of devices, which Apple has tight control of. Android works on thousands, if not tens of thousands of devices.
Right.
Okay. So they try and minimalize the amount of difference you have, but there are differences because there's so many different devices. Now, you can focus on some of the biggest sellers. That would be Samsung and LG and Google, et cetera, hardware. But you still have many, many other devices. But if you're looking to reach the most people possible, you will always go to Android first. Okay. But developers have to do more than what they have to develop for every platform. So it's more expensive to go to Android. That's where they go to Apple first.
Right. Less devices they got to test across and all that.
Right. But, you know, every Android development, every Android iteration makes each device more and more similar in terms of coding on the API and the APK.
Now, wait, you got to finish your analogy. How does that compare to the cryptos with the blockchain space?
So on the crypto and the blockchain space, okay, you can have open source only Bitcoin, right? Or same thing with Ethereum or Solana or et cetera. Or you can have a platform that incorporates technology from everything and everybody, right? And potentially can run everywhere, plug, write once, play everywhere. Which is more valuable?
Wait, repeat that.
You can have a blockchain that only incorporates intellectual property from that core group of developers, okay? Like currently with Bitcoin. And they only want to put, you know, open source, non-patented technology into Bitcoin. So you have a funnel maybe that big. Or you could open it up to everybody and get all the technology in, right? That makes sense. So now you have a funnel that big. Right. And it appeals to many, many more people because it does many, many more things. Which is more valuable? You know, a funnel that catches that much money or a funnel that catches that much money?
You need the big funnel. Yeah, I catch everything.
Okay. So, and I get the feeling that the developers weren't aware that they were using patented technology going in, and they're developers, they're not IP attorneys, so I can understand that. And a lot of people would have thought it was a mistake and don't do it, but I don't think so, right? Which would you rather have, an all open source platform or the most capable platform possible?
Ooh, me personally, I need all capabilities.
Yeah. You know, because if you go all open source platform, your platform is never going to be able to use Bluetooth. Bluetooth is patented. It's never going to be use IP5 or IP6 and Wi-Fi. Okay, because many of the stuff that incorporated in the Wi-Fi chips are patented. Qualcomm, Huawei, you know, Ericsson. As a matter of fact, if you want to avoid patents, you probably couldn't do anything over a cell phone through the internet.
Everything you use, somebody's name is on it.
Yeah, and it's not everything, because I'm not against open source. Open source is a very good way of rapidly developing software and sharing technology, but it also creates a lot of weaknesses. For instance, the story that I've been telling about the swaps, you know, Reggie Middleton and his Veritas and BTC swap, and then Bancor, and then Uniswap, and then Sushi Swap, and then Pancake Swap. These are all people copying off of ideas off of one entity, and that one entity's idea infringed upon my idea. So everybody was coming up with their own ideas, right? That level of infiltration of patented technology would have never occurred. And they didn't realize, I'm assuming they didn't know they were doing it. They could have known, but it's irrelevant. So now the owner of that patented IP controls all those has access to all those platforms. Not necessarily a bad thing, okay, but that's the way it is. I think you'd have a much more vibrant community if people did more independent thinking and creation on their own. And if you have to include patented IP, do it, as long as the end result is a better product. It helps everybody.
Right.
But we have this, I don't believe in patent nonsense, and that is truly nonsense, because the US has the strongest, deepest, and most developed patent system in the world. The US has the strongest, deepest, and most developed economy, financial markets, and technology markets in the entire world. Number two, probably be China. Ditto with patents and with the economy and technology. Number three, arguably, or number two, Japan. Ditto with the patents, the technology, the finance, etc. Number four, South Korea, Seoul, Israel, etc. Now you have the European nations, which have a more stringent patent granting system, the EPO. And if you take 17 nations and wrap them together, they'll equal, give or take, a percentage point or two, Japan by itself, one small island nation.
Wow. They concentrated. They gonna keep their stuff in the house. But the one thing with how I look at it is, with the patents, it's like the drug game. If you ain't selling it, or if you ain't got it, somebody else will.
Yeah.
That's unfortunately, whether people agree with it or not, that's just how some things work.
And the thing is, you should. I mean, why would you not want ownership of something that you created? That doesn't mean you can't give it away. You want to give it away, patent it and give it away. Okay? At least you have the opportunity to do that. And I explained at a previous show also, you cannot enforce open source software without enforcing your IP rights. It is impossible. So if you don't take ownership and control your copyright, you give somebody some code away, and then somebody takes that code, changes it, makes it closed source. You can't do anything about it. You could say, I didn't want that, but we don't care what you want. It's not yours. You gave it away. Now, open source licenses only work because the person who created the open source license took control of their copyright. And so they say, we want this to be free in perpetuity, right? You can use it, do whatever you want, but if you make a change, that change has to be contributed back to the community. Or you can make that change, but X, Y, Z. You could do whatever you want, basically. You still have to enforce it, but you can do whatever you want. By enforcing those rights and telling people that it has to be available and free, you are taking control of your IP. So if you say, I don't believe in IP rights and patents and copyrights, you're disagreeing with yourself if you believe in open source software. It goes to show the amount of ignorance in the industry. And I don't mean to be condescending saying ignorance. I mean ignorance in not knowing. So any believer in open source software is a big believer in IP rights.
And man, I think people just want to they like the good old good storybook telling of no centralization or anybody controlling it. I think that's what the narrative that we see thrown around a lot is.
Nobody who invests in tokens traded on an exchange believes that. Nobody. Because if you didn't have centralization, then you wouldn't have concentration of profits or gains. If it's fully decentralized, everybody makes the same thing. So you're not buying Bitcoin for capital appreciation gain and someone else doesn't get it, because then it's not fully centralized now, is it? Right? That value proposition inside, right, has to be fully distributed all the way around.
And everybody wants their own slice of what they want to get. They don't want to get the same as the next man.
They want to get more, which means you don't believe in centralization, but I mean decentralization. And anybody who wants to disprove that point, pass your profits on to me and prove it.
I don't think they're gonna do that.
Yeah, I'll hold my breath for that one too. I wouldn't hold my breath. So,
so before we get out of here, Reggie, I just want to check the comments. We didn't have too much scrolling through. Of course, we got your neighborhood favorite, your favorite fan in here, Cryptonomics. Sandy B said upgrade ? Side chains are not upgrades. I think we're referring to Bitcoin initiative projects, BIPs. where they do upgrades to the blockchain. You can see that
That's
on their sites.
Bitcoin improvement proposals, and that
Proposal.
is
What did I say?
um, something that was in it, but it's all right.
My
It's
bad.
irrelevant, right? Um, so that comment shows that when you improve Bitcoin, you change the code and you upgrade it, soft fork or hard fork. Okay, it's still called Bitcoin Core, BTC. Okay, now the split chains such as BCH and Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin something else, I forget the other one. Those also infringe according to our analysis. Now they don't have much adoption, but they do infringe. So that comment is an example of what I was telling you about earlier. If you are objective and you literally just wanted information, you were like, okay, well, that's interesting. Tell me more. But a lot of people, if not most of the maximalists, come back and they try and debunk, right, what I'm saying. No, the patent doesn't cover it. No, it's not it. It's not this. No, 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 no. That's not objective. That's not impartial. That's you going out of your way to say, you don't have a patent on this. Right. Okay. So you have an ulterior motive. You have a preconceived agenda of trying to disprove or trying to make sure that that doesn't happen. Where if you're curious, you're like, well, this is how I understand it. Am I right or am I wrong? You don't really care which way it goes. Okay, but if you look at the comments, you'll see a lot of, and not necessarily view, but depending on where the comments are and what media I'm using, I'm on, they go out of their way. Oh no, hell no, it can't be the case, blah, blah, blah. So you're not looking for the truth. You're looking to make sure that that dude does not get ahead. Despite the fact he invented something and somebody took his invention and incorporated in a big machination that's used worldwide, which is a very good reason for him for compensation. No, it's impossible, and this and that and that and that. So this industry is rife with personalities like that. It's unfortunate.
It is. People rather listen to respond instead of listening to understand more sometimes.
And notice they don't say anything about like that to Sam Bankman-Fried. They don't say anything like that about Vitalik. Okay. And those guys are both more than young enough to be my children. I have a son older than both of them, or their age,
Yeah. Vitalik's what, 20, 26, 27. I think Sam Bankman's 30. I mean, him the same age.
My oldest son is 30, so yeah.
Okay. So from Courtney Johnson, she asked, I appreciate you, Reggie. Can you explain how your tech was here before Ethereum or before ETH, but your coin is on Ethereum blockchain?
Well, putting the coin on the blockchain has nothing to do with when I invented the technology.
Right.
So I could put the coin on the blockchain at any given time. And, let's suppose you invented a car and you built a car. Or you invented a car and somebody built the car using the same plans that you invented. And you decide to put, your dog in the car. That has absolutely nothing to do with whether you invented the car or not. You just put something in somebody's car. Do you understand?
Right. Yeah.
But I understand the question. I just want to answer the question using non-techno babble to give an example.
That's you already know that's the best way to explain some of this stuff. But other than that, we just have kind of people just going back and forth about some of our comments. One question from Marcus Walter, ask Reggie what he thinks about the eCash XEC project that is merging proof of work with proof of stake Avalanche consensus as money for the world. I haven't heard of that. Are you familiar with any of that?
I have no idea.
Yeah.
As long as they're using my stuff, I don't care. So.
All right, that's all the questions that we have. Reggie, I don't have any more questions for you today. Do you have anything you want to leave the audience on today?
Do your research and be careful, and follow the money. There's a lot of institutional monies coming in. There's a lot of concentration now in the infrastructure. FTX, Sam Bankman-Fried, JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, Morgan Stanley, Binance, and CZ. A lot of media concerns are saying Sam Bankman-Fried is the richest man in crypto, and it's either just a blatant mistake or it's a very U.S.-centric way of looking at things. I'm quite confident that CZ has been beat by a significant margin. But because he's ex-US, he's not even ex-US, he has a US branch even. But that's also irrelevant. The mantra of decentralization is long gone. You know, take a look at Digital Currency Group and look at their holdings and look what they have invested in, acquired, sold, and what they have.
We shared that image about three or four episodes ago where they got their hands in the Coinbase, MasterCard, all Kraken. They tied in with all these exchanges already.
And that image was like 4 or 5 years old. You know, share a recent one. You know, and that's just them. JP Morgan, I am pretty sure, has control of core Ethereum infrastructure. I'm pretty sure they do. And that's a bank. You know, if you take a look at who David Silver, is his name David Silver? I forget his name, but I think that's close to it. He's the guy who founded DCG, and he did very well for himself. But in order for funding, he got big bank equity buy-in. So DCG is majority owned by Wall Street banks. Bank of America, JP Morgan, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so all those holdings that DCG has, that's Wall Street. So
they acting as a proxy.
Yeah, and then you have JP Morgan, which owns Ethereum assets directly through their purchase of Consensus, you know, and then you have, you know, Binance, and CZ does not own all of Binance, but whether he does or he doesn't, there's a large concentration there. And then you have Sam Bankman-Fried on the other end trying to catch up. And we're not even discussing IP and everything. Like I said, the IP bubble is going to pop later the fourth quarter this year or next year, because everybody's still acting like it doesn't exist, except for a core group of high-powered lawyers who have been retained to basically try and refute patents. But this is behind closed doors right now. Now, you can't do that at scale without me finding out about it, because, you know, we have a lot of people who don't want me to succeed, but you do have a lot of people who do want me to succeed, and they don't want unethical things to be done, so they share information. Okay,
right.
So if you're going to do that stuff, it's going to get out to the people you're doing it with, and when it becomes public, whether through litigation or anything else, you'll see that ignoring IP risks in a purely IP-driven industry is just downright foolish. It really is. It makes zero sense at all. That's like ignoring automobiles and you're a car manufacturer.
Hey, like they say, Henry Ford didn't invent the vehicle. He just invented how to make it faster.
Basically, that is true. It's very true.
He had the process, not the actual product.
Yeah.
But again, I appreciate you, Reggie, for another weekly edition of Foundations of DeFi with yourself, the father of DeFi. And again, appreciate everybody for checking out. Like, share, subscribe. And we will be back on another Hump Day Wednesday. Peace, everybody.
Okay, one other thing, too. These conversations are deep, and they should get much more traction. I want everybody, whoever that guy is who keeps talking trash, I can't remember his name, and everybody else, positive or negative, as long as you're polite and professional, I'll address you. Carry this conversation over Twitter and link to this particular video, because there's a lot of stuff that we went through that is still nowhere. You would nowhere in the world you would ever get this in any of the CoinDesk and Cointelegraphs or any of the Twitterati. So let's have this conversation.
Say, go straight to the primary source. You're a primary source on this stuff.
And let's give the channel the props it deserves. I'll be coming on my own channel probably later on today and doing a hard-hitting deep dive on some of this stuff. If you wanna participate, I'm very bad at doing this regularly, so it may not happen, but hit me up on Twitter and I'll let you know. But anyway, you've had this video here. Bring the conversation to Twitter. I'll jump on in about 5 minutes, and let's have a conversation and link back to the video, because this should get a lot more traffic than it does. It really should.
Cool. And he's talking to you, Cryptonomics. Go ahead and hop on Twitter again and have the talk, have the debate.
Yeah. And use your name. That way you get credibility.
There you go. All right, everybody. Have a good one.